Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie and Paul Gibson, with loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world. We deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. What are we talking about today, Charles?
Why are you wearing a hood?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that whole emo trend's coming back. My hair's looking a little swoopy too.
Well, they did bring back the baggy jeans and stuff, but that's not what we're talking about today. But yeah, you gave me definite emo vibes. We're talking about cost per hire. Are you bleeding money? Is it a crisis? Does it matter?
All right, now feeling a little emo. Cost per hire is a rough one, especially in the current environment, man. Like it's just a lot of when you look at it, what are you looking at it? But what are you looking at? But also back to last week when we were talking about do you protect your margins right now? Do you just build a wall around that and keep it safe, or do you try to grow? It kind of continues with that too, I think.
Or do you just buy stuff?
Yeah, I feel like that's how we made it through the pandemic. Everybody was just like, well, I don't know if I'm ever leaving my house, so.
I'm not talking about you buying toiletries. I'm talking about the way to grow. You buy other businesses. It's acquisition season.
Touche. For some people, it's like, hey, we should sell this, or there's not going to be anything left. But either way, before we do that, we got to do all the same stuff we do every week. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. So if you could subscribe, or rate, that helps push us out a little bit further. Helps us do some cooler stuff, like some of the stuff we're going to do later this year.
You can also go to centspermilepodcast.com. That's right. You can suggest a topic, to be a guest, or even to become a sponsor.
Yep, you can become a sponsor. But speaking of sponsoring, we're going to get to that in the news. All right, so it's time for 10-2 News, where we pull the biggest, most interesting, relevant, or whatever stories we want from the last week or two, usually from CDLLife News. But today we have an announcement from CDLLife.
And it's the news.
And Bennett. Play it.
Get ready for the Stars, Stripes, and White Lines Truck Show, November 7th and 8th at Echo Park Speedway in Hampton, Georgia. Jeeps, motorcycles, and show trucks so shiny you can check your freedom in the reflection as the biggest and baddest big rigs from across the nation battle it out for the title of World's Most Beautiful Truck. Hear the ripping riffs of trucker-turned-country star Tony Justice. This show's got balls, hundreds of them, and we're going to drop them from a Huey military helicopter to support wreaths across America and a chance to win $10,000. If this doesn't excite you, you might as well move to Canada, so start your engines and we'll see you there.
Yep. America.
It had those vibes.
It did. That's the thing. It's Stars, Stripes, White Lines, man. But the cool thing is that CDLLife has announced, it's been announced that they are the official media sponsor of the show. And so in a press release, it says CDLLife is proud to announce its role as the official media sponsor of the Stars, Stripes, and White Lines National Championship Truck Show, presented by the Bennett family of companies. The event will take place November 7th through November 8th, 2025 at Echo Park Speedway. Ooh, almost tripped on that one. But yeah, so this year's show does more than celebrate the best trucks in the country. It fuels a mission to honor America's fallen heroes. Proceeds from the event will support wreaths across America, with the goal of covering all 20,800 grave sites at Andersonville National Cemetery with wreaths during the Christmas season. Kevin, who is a guest later on the show, so this feels weird to speak for him, CEO of CDLLife, shared his excitement about the partnership, said, "We're excited to be the official media partner with the Bennett family of companies for this year's event, showcasing the top trucks in the country and crowning a national champion, but most importantly, fulfilling their mission of ensuring every hero is honored as a part of the Wreaths Across America. We look forward to highlighting SSWL to the largest and most engaged audience of truckers at CDLLife and our industry's top show, Cents Per Mile." Hey, he gave us a shout out.
Don't forget the part where he said we were all getting raises for doing such a phenomenal job on Cents Per Mile.
I didn't get that edit. Along with crowning the national champion in the truck show, we The event will feature a open class big rig Jeep and motorcycle show, the Wreaths Across America golf ball drop, which is insane. We'll get to that in a second, and a live concert by country music artist Tony Justice. At the largest online community for truck drivers, CDLLife will provide national exposure for the SSWL Truck Show through its platforms, ensuring the event and its mission will reach millions across the trucking industry. Once again, November 7th through the 8th, 2025, Echo Park Speedway in Hampton, Georgia. That golf ball drop, is that where can we start there?
No, we're going to get there because that is really cool. But I do want to spend a minute on this because if you look at CDLLife's mission to capture today's trucking, put it out there to the millions of people that it has in its audience, and to represent today's drivers, it aligns perfectly with what Bennett Family of Companies is trying to do, and it's supporting a cause. One of the big things that we can take away from this, though, is everyone is invited. They have opened up the Washington Park for everyone to be there. So if you got a truck and you want to show it off, even if you don't have a truck and you just want to show up, this is the place to be.
Yep, it's going to be a good time. Or if you have a Jeep or a motorcycle, there's lots of stuff to do.
Did they open it up for awesome kick butt Fords like my Black Widow?
There was nothing about those kinds of trucks or trucks outside of, just because your truck is showy doesn't mean it's a show truck. But that Wreaths Across America, that is huge. It is coming up at the time of the year. There are deadlines and they gotta, they need support because it's an incredible mission and journey that they go on. I think it's probably one of the most creative ways I've ever heard to raise money for that. If you noticed in the video, it said, I believe,
dropping them balls.
This show's got balls. Yep. They're gonna take I think it's I don't know how many golf balls, and they're gonna drop them from a Huey helicopter, and you have a chance to win up to $10,000 depending on where it lands.
Do you think we need to get Kevin to pull some strings to get us in the chopper? We don't need to be dropped from the chopper, but like in the chopper.
Hey man, I think that would be great.
You want to get
if you could just kind of rappel down at the same time that they're falling, that'd be great footage.
Yeah, there might be insurance concerns there.
That's fine.
It's Paulo sign a waiver.
We've discussed it so many times on the show. Insurance is the actual root of the cause of most of the problems in the trucking industry. Caution to the wind, as far as I'm concerned. But it's gonna be rad. Check it out. We're gonna have some people on talking about it over the next couple months, and it's gonna be awesome. Now for our next story, which hopefully has nothing to do with anybody or any of these companies or anybody watching, but we're all affected by it because it is the economy, and it goes kind of in hand with today's story. So Jerome Powell, if you're watching this, it'd be 2 Fridays ago, but as of recording this, last Friday said that had a speech basically and came out and talked, and he said that he is pretty concerned about the labor market, despite all the ups and downs about the statistics. He's talked about possibly cutting freight rates, specifically because of the jobs numbers. So concerns about the pace of job growth were heightened earlier this month after government data showed a sharp slowdown in hiring in July, along with much weaker payroll gains in May and June than previously thought. The disappointing numbers were alarming enough for President Trump to question their accuracy and to fire the head of the agency, tasked with compiling the data. Labor experts tell CBS News they weren't surprised by the downturn and cautioned that more pain could be in store for job seekers. Data released since the August 1st job numbers show companies are delaying hiring as they adjust course to account for headwinds, including the fresh U.S. tariffs and the advent of artificial intelligence. A quote from Andy Challenger, Senior Vice President Executive of outplacement firm Challenger, said, "There's a real cooling in the labor market. We're also having lots of individual conversations with companies, letting us know to expect future layoffs. So for me, there's a reason to be pessimistic about the labor market, then optimistic. We'll see some major bounce back." And the interesting thing they're pointing out, too, is that a lot of companies are stalling on hiring entry-level workers because of the uptick in AI, to see how far that goes, but then also because of the market. So you've got that to be a perfect storm for everybody coming out of college, which might be a good way to get people in the truck. 2008 did it.
Well, I mean, we are seeing, if you look at the people that are most dramatically affected by the rise of AI, it's all those careers that everyone said, you got to go to college and learn the code. You got to go to college and do this. And those are the first jobs that are being impacted. The actual hands-on labor, not too worried right now. They're actually more worried about getting more people into those sectors because there's a lack of people doing those jobs.
Well, okay, so one, being a millennial, like when you're going through a buffet and you're halfway through and then you realize that the silverware was at the beginning of the buffet and not at the end. So you have to go back to get the silverware. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about my bootstraps when they're like, oh, just lift yourself up by them. It's like, oh, I missed that part where we picked those up. But anyway, and we'll figure it out. But the big thing I think is also he talked about the number of people who are out there actively looking for jobs and how common it is right now. And this is where it ties in with today. How common it is for employers, even for entry level positions right now, to get hundreds of resumes per job listing. And there are people, literally, the average job search is months. It is taking people months to find jobs.
Well, yeah, I mean, go on LinkedIn. If you want to be depressed, go to LinkedIn and look for people that are open to work and look how long they've been out there.
Yep. So I think that could roll in pretty interesting to our conversation about cost per hire. But real quick, we got to go behind the desk with tenstreet.
Do you want to grow your fleet but get buried by paperwork, slow hiring processes, and outdated systems, all while struggling to comply with changing safety regulations? Enter tenstreet, the all-in-one platform that simplifies driver lifecycle management by bringing marketing, recruiting, onboarding, safety, and retention together in one place. tenstreet coordinates and streamlines all your operations. Post to dozens of job boards at once. Speed time to hire with pre-population and AI to get more full applications faster. And manage the entire post-hire process, from cutting costs with online onboarding to integrating all safety data into one dashboard, to improving retention through thoughtful engagement. Whether you have one truck or 1,000, our expert team is here to help. Sleep soundly knowing you can pass an audit, attract needed drivers, and achieve your business goals. Join the thousands of carriers using tenstreet. Sign up for a demo today.
Now it's time for Make Sense, and we're bringing in Kevin Hall, the CEO of CDLLife, to help us make sense of cost per hire. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Hey, good. Always good to be here with you too. I did want to address, I heard the upfront part there was some great news and some fake news. Did I hear that? I mean, the great news, I heard that we have this partnership now with the Bennett family of companies, and that we're partnering on Stars, Stripes, and White Lines, which is an amazing event. The fake news, there was something in there I heard about the news about raises for you guys. Like, did I hear that right?
Yeah, it was in the press release.
Oh, I missed that part. Yeah, okay. All right. Just wanted to clarify. We don't do fake news here at CDLLife. We do have journalistic integrity as our focus.
Well, also, I would point out that no one said fake news. Technically. So saying that someone said fake news is fake news.
Well, I'm glad I'm here to correct. That's good.
No, we're happy to have you here. And Kevin, we had that exciting story about you guys, us guys being part of Star Stripe White Lines, raising the cause. And now we're going to dive into the nitty gritty of cost per hire.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And that's one of those things where it's different depending on who you talk. Some people look at it holistically. Some people have like segments of cost per hire they pay attention to. What does cost per hire mean to you?
I actually look at the total acquisition cost of a driver, right? So if I think of cost per hire, what I would want to deal with is how much is it the total cost of getting that driver in the seat. Because if you look at it, a lot of people will look at cost per hire as how much is my marketing spend versus each hire that I get, and do the division to come up with that. But that's not really a good equation, right? Because like, you should have the ability to reduce your overall costs. That gets that hire in the seat at the end of the day. That's what you're really worth. That's the dollars you're spending to get that, not just the marketing spend. There's a lot of other things. and a lot of other efficiencies that you can gain outside of your marketing spend to reduce that overall total acquisition cost at the end of the day.
So, and I get that, because I would agree with it 100%, especially because when you start getting into holistic, that becomes retention. But I would ask, so like, just to tackle that, like the way that it's commonly thought of, the reason for doing that division, your marketing spend, like your budget that you spent by the number of leads you get and dividing that up across the different vendors and stuff like that, is thought process because it's usually used to spend the recruiting budget that way. Now, when you look at it holistically, that's when you get into like re-detailing trucks, et cetera, orientation costs, training costs, time costs for the employees involved in that. At what point, how would you suggest someone in a recruiting department like go take that on holistically, and like what does that look like?
I think the recruiting department, their goal is to reduce the things that they have control over, right? They have control over where they spend the dollars. They have control over how they process those drivers coming through, how efficient those are. We battle all the time with companies who want a low cost per lead, but don't really focus on a cost per hire. If I could double your cost per lead and cut your cost per hire in half, wouldn't you be happy, right? So that whole piece of that whole element that you have control over, getting into the trucks and all of those things, that's outside of their probably purview or what they need to be focused on. Focus on your piece of the pie, what you can impact. But in recruiting, that's much more than marketing spend, right? Like that is a lot more than just and I think it goes back to sales and marketing. I've been in marketing for 25 years or so. And when you're focused 100% on where you're spending your marketing dollars, not necessarily what you're doing with what's coming in, that's where you start to get awry in terms of efficiencies or optimizing the overall cost of acquisition.
So now I'd like to kind of ask, we talk to a lot of people and people put the measurement or the line in the sand at different spots at where your marketing company is responsible versus where you, the carrier, are responsible for that conversion. And I have my feelings I've shared on the show before where I think that line should go. In your opinion, where in the process does the burden fall more on the carrier versus the marketing partner as far as the conversion actually happening? What defines success from the marketing point of view?
Yeah, I think if you're not looking at the whole picture, if you're separating it, you're not looking at the right thing, right? So if you're purely focused on what is the marketing output and you're not looking at those leads or those applicants coming through the entire process and how efficient that whole engine is, it's just like a truck, right? If you're just looking at one portion of the engine, you're not looking at the overall efficiency of what that engine can produce. And so I think that's the case here with recruiting. I think a lot of times we have this barrier between marketing and recruiting, and they don't work hand in hand. The results that you see in the recruiting side never go back in and get recycled into the marketing spend. And so everybody's out there. One of the common things we see is everybody kind of on that never-ending source or search for that golden goose source of leads or applicants, and they move money around all the time. They're like, well, this month it was X. I need to move money over here. I need to move money over here. The sourcing is the easy part. And I know that's contradictory in the market to what everybody's focused on, but the actual sourcing of getting in front of the drivers, finding the drivers, that's easy. Like that is the simple part. Where you make meteoric moves is how you combine that sourcing with the actual processing of those applicants.
So if you're looking at evaluating like a process, like say I'm the carrier and I give X amount of dollars to you and you supply leads and I'm like, I don't get hires. At what point in the process are you looking at my internal processes versus your output?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the issue that we see all the time. They spend money and say, give me all the leads or the applicants that you can give me, and then we'll address the other side of it, right? It's like this this wall that's in between the two sides of things. So that's really where for example, our CDO Connect technology is intended to break all of that down. It is one engine. It should be humming together. It should be producing together. It should be efficient across the board. It should be looking at the data across the entire process to optimize it, because that's really where you can make, again, meteoric moves or meteoric changes in cost per hire, reducing cost per hire.
So I think that's cool, because historically what we've seen is it's this. Everyone does this whole thing, and
it's the same thing with sales and marketing, right? Sales and marketing used to be separated, and it still is in a lot of places. But they'd point the fingers. It would be sales would say this lead's not good, and marketing would say I can give you all kinds of leads. Why can't you close them? Recruiting is the exact same process.
Recruiting is sales. A lot of people hate when people say that, but it is essentially sales. You are selling your company, and it takes the messaging, it takes the input of new contacts, and it takes those conversations to close them. And they have to be uniformed. Otherwise, you're going to have drop-offs. And historically, that's some of the biggest areas that people have gone in and made huge efforts and spent a lot of time in just reinforcing that the alignment of those messages happen.
1,000%. I mean, we call it, we don't believe in funnels here. We don't believe in driver recruiting funnels. We call them driver journeys, right? Because if you think about a funnel, what's the goal? It's to cram stuff into this and try to squeeze this down to some output at the end of the day. Drivers don't want to be pushed, right? They are on their own. Each driver has their own mindset. They're in their own position, their own status of where they're making a decision. They have their own timeline. They have their own desires, priorities, whatever that is. And so that's really, I think, just changing the thought process around from how can we get this driver as quickly through the funnel as possible to understanding that each person is unique, and how do you take that person from finding them with the same message, the same consistency, right, all the way through. That experience that drivers have whenever they're being recruited has a direct impact. We just did a survey, has a direct impact to whether they choose to join you or not. And so if you're trying to hurry them along, or the message is inconsistent, or the experience when they apply once through one vendor and apply the second time through another vendor, if the experience is different, that has a dramatic impact to their decision to join you, right? That's a good indication of who you are, what your culture is like, right? What your process is like.
So it's safe to say that, based on what I'm hearing, you think people need to focus more on the cost per hire rather than a cost per leave, shove it in and play the numbers game.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like the total acquisition of cost that you have, where can you find opportunities for improvement across that? I go back to, everybody talks about lead to hire ratios. I go back to, let's say your lead to hire ratio is 30-1. Right? And you're pretty consistent, and 30-1. Maybe you're better than that. Maybe you're worse than that. We've seen them all over the page, right? We had one client say they were 3-1. That's amazing. We've seen some people say they're 300-1. But if it's 30-1, my question is, what happens to those other 29 applicants? Because if if you could just get one more out of those 29, you just cut your cost per hire in half, or your acquisition cost in half. Now, are you going to be able to do that by changing around different sources all the time? Probably not, right? It's the journey, it's the experience that those drivers have. How can you garner one more out of those 29 to decide whether it's late stage loss, early stage loss, or whatever? And again, one of those, you cut your cost per hire in half, which is dramatic.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times people get so hung up on what's coming out of the funnel that they forget about what didn't make it out of the funnel and how to get more out of that. And in order to do that, you have to start evaluating how people went through the ebbs and flows of your process and where things can be improved. Is it the messaging? Is it the remarketing efforts? Is it the conversations? Do the recruiters need to spend more time talking to the individuals and having meaningful connections? And what can you do to leverage those to take place?
I mean, as you know, the recruiters have a tough job. I mean, they have a lot of load on them. They have a lot of demand. They're trying to talk to all kinds of applicants. They good applicants who lied, applicants who aren't qualified. I mean, just a lot of different things. And if you can fine tune the engine, what you find is that those recruiters are able to talk to the top quality, right? Really focusing in on their what they do best, going back to being a salesperson, right? Not dealing with the majority of the waste that happens in recruiting that recruiters don't like to do. If you can get them focused on closing deals, that's really where you can make a significant improvement as well.
So what do you think is the most instrumental part when people are evaluating cost per hire, and whether they should focus on the cost per hire or something else is more important and instrumental in their success? What do you think the most important part is that every recruiting department and recruiting director should be paying attention to?
I think the very first thing you start with is accurate data and accurate information about truly what's happening in your process. We see it all the time. We talk to clients about they're taking they're copy and pasting data from vendor A and vendor B and putting it into a spreadsheet and doing this sort of master pivot table ninja work to get to data that they honestly admit that they're not confident in, right? And I don't think a lot of the systems out there give them a precise, accurate picture of what's happening to their marketing dollar spend. And so I would say the most important thing is having reliable data that shows you exactly where you're spending, exactly what that's producing, exactly where the fall off is. And then you can start to build continual improvement programs, right? If you don't know where the holes are, how can you patch them up? And the holes aren't in sourcing. If you're struggling with how to get in front of drivers, that's easy. Again, that a lot of people still struggle with that and spend most of their time focused on that. And that's already done. Like that's the easy part. It's really about getting to a point where you can see the entire picture, the engine, and where is it leaking oil? Where's the fuel inefficiencies at, right? Where's the drag at, so that you can actually change that to improve the efficiency across the entire engine.
Good stuff. So if people want to learn more or hear about the capabilities of your platform, where can they check it out?
Yeah, CDLConnect.io is our technology platform that covers everything from applicant sourcing, integrated applicant sourcing, to the latest analytics, to even what we call generative driver journeys to take those people on those individual journeys all the way through the hiring process.
Sounds like cool stuff. And we might know a couple guys that work there.
We do. Yeah. We all share the badge here, right? So, good stuff.
One thing, there's a truck in the logo. One thing with that, I would say, too, is what I find interesting is, like you've talked about, like finding where the engine is leaking. It's a great analogy. And I think the thing that a lot of people miss when they're in lead gen and they're looking at cost per hire, they're looking at cost per lead, all that. I think that part is huge. And I mean, a lot of people do go out of their way to work on those things, and you can do it manually, by going through and, forcing your recruiters to call all of your attempting contacts and all of that stuff, which is the worst, but times are slow. You got to do what you got to do. I think the real innovative part for me, having seen everything behind the scenes, is the ability to do those things in mass, like on a 30,000 foot overview, instead of focusing on like, oh, this driver fell off here. It's like it allows you to kind of see the big picture, and then we can help you like actually attack where the issue is. And I think the cool part is the idea of like, everybody sells you the future of recruiting or like a one-stop solution. And it's like, we have the ability to find out what your problem is and then help you fix it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, imagine me as a non-mechanical person trying to fix an engine. It would be impossible, right? And unless you had a diagnostic tool that told you exactly where things were going. But, driver recruiting is like the engine, where you say, hey, all I'm worried about is the fuel that I stick into the engine. Like, that's the only thing that I'm ever concerned about. There's so many other parts to it. There's so many other elements that go into this process. And if you didn't have a quality diagnostic tool to understand exactly what's going through, what's happening, you'd just be guessing, right? You'd be, again, focused on what you think it is, but there's a bigger picture out there to look at.
Well, I'd say there's a lot of people that probably are a little bit more, I guess for the sake of the analogy, a little bit more like automotively inclined, because there are a lot of like natural reporting and stuff. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't even think it's about that. I think it's about the ease. It's not the lack of capability. It's the fact that like I could go through and find all those things through all of those pivot tables that you were talking about, which are a nightmare. But the fact that like that can actually do it for you, which saves you time there. So you can focus on the actual relationships. But then also, instead of just giving you a solution for everything, we found the problem. You agree it's a problem, and we can now offer solutions for that specific problem instead of just trying to sell you 95,000 things you don't need or tell you we're the future or anything like that. I love that. That's why I work here.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We have a purpose of waking up every day to try to improve the lives of people who are in this crazy world that we live in the CDL trucking world. And that's recruiting is definitely a core focus of how do we improve what they do on a daily basis.
Well, and I think that's the cool thing too, is what we do. Not only do we help you reduce your cost, not only do we make it easier for you to get the data and analytics to make those important decisions, but in doing so, the recruiters have a better time, the carriers have a better time, and the drivers have a better time.
Yeah, better experience. Yep, absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Well, good stuff, Kevin. Thanks for coming on Cents Per Mile, but we're running out of time. So, Paul, I think we got to close it out.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.